Hi, and welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 8, Episode 2. My name is Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of Project Voice. We've got Project Voice 2023 coming up in late April. You'll see that link in the YouTube notes and the podcast notes. Check that out. If you don't know what that is, you'll want to learn because it's a conference that is shaping up well, and we're excited about it. About 2,500 attendees or so, and we'll be talking much more about it on the show to come. Today, we're fortunate to have just a fantastic panel of guests to discuss three key stories. And Molly, I'm going to start with you. Take a moment, tell us who you are, tell us who you're with. And you're on mute.
Thank you for the introduction, Bradley. And thank you for asking me to join you at This Week in Voice. I'm excited to be part of the discussion today, along with such a terrific panel of guests. My personal focus is finding the perfect blend between technology and humanity. I lead a creative technology agency called Molly Duggan Associates, and we're dedicated to helping clients connect with their customers while enabling growth through their brand touchpoints. So whether we're building or supporting our clients' most valuable marketing asset, their website, or creating meaningful and personalized conversations with conversational marketing, we're focused on our clients' growth, and we help organizations develop human-centric digital ecosystems that continuously inspire customers along the buying journey with innovative strategic approaches and best practices. And I just want to say thank you again, Bradley, and to the panel for welcoming me today.
Molly, it's fantastic to have you on the show, and everything you're doing is so impressive and high end. Thank you for giving us the time. Next up is Shyamala Prayaga of NVIDIA. Shyamala, it's great to see you.
Hey, thank you so much, Bradley, and I'm so excited to be in this episode. So my name is Shyamala Prayaga. I'm the Senior Software Product Manager at NVIDIA, and I lead the conversational AI products effort, mostly around large language models, which we are going to talk about, and also around the custom voices. So I'm really excited to be here. About NVIDIA, many people think it's a GPU company, but NVIDIA has been focusing in a lot of more things than just GPUs. They have a very strong effort going on in the artificial intelligence side of things with the self-driving cars, the conversational AI, the large language models. We have our own speech recognition technology and text-to-speech technology as well. And in addition to these things, we're also strongly working on the metaverse side of things, creating MetaHumans, Avatar Cloud Engine, and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of innovation happening at the company at different levels. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you for giving us the time, and great to see you on the show. Next up, Victor from Synthesia. Victor, how are you?
I'm great, Bradley. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving us the time. Tell us who you are. Tell us about Synthesia.
Yeah, so I'm Victor, and I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of Synthesia. We're the world's largest platform for AI video generation. So with our platform, you can very simply create video content by simply just typing out the script, selecting an avatar, or creating an avatar of yourself. Wait a few minutes and you have a video that's a lot easier to create than having to go out and find a camera, a studio, an actor, and all that jazz. Long term, our mission is to enable anyone to make a Hollywood film on a laptop. I think we're 5 to 8 years away from that. And that's going to be a really, really exciting period in time, I think, where we'll see creativity really being unleashed by not just the people with the big budgets and the right connections, but by everyone around the globe. So that's what I'm super excited about.
I love that. Yeah, well, I think everybody on this panel and broadly in the space is interested in sort of the democratization of opportunity. And great to hear you touch on that. Thank you for making the time, Victor. And Freddie, I'll go to you. Freddie Feldman of Wolters Kluwer Health. I always mess that up. Freddie, it's great to see you. Tell us who you are. Tell us who you're with.
Sure, Bradley. Thanks for having me. I'm Freddie Feldman, Director of Voice and Conversational Interfaces for Wolters Kluwer Health. Wolters Kluwer is a set of Dutch names, so it's primarily it's a Dutch-based company, Netherlands-based company in the publishing space. I'm in Wolters Kluwer Health Clinical Effectiveness Emmy, which I'm here in our Chicago downtown Loop office in our sound booth. And we create patient engagement programs. They're IVR-based voice interfaces for following up with patients, helping them transition from the hospital back home, long-term care management for chronic care management, as well as preventative types of calls, outreach calls that we do to patients, tens of thousands daily.
Excellent. Thank you for being on the show as well, Freddie.
Sure.
Great to
Thanks
see
for
you.
having me.
So with that, we're going to get into the news. And this episode is a little bit different than usual because we've got 3 stories instead of 4, an editorial choice designed to give us a little bit more time to discuss them because they're significant. I'm going to read story number 1, which is from voicebot.ai. Huge surprise there, out loud. SoundHound raises $25 million weeks after major layoffs. So, I just have to laugh at how the headline is presented. I think it's, I love everything VoiceBot does. Everybody knows that. We always use their stuff. But it's super controversial in this space right now. Everything that's gone on with SoundHound over the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to go in the same order to start as we just went through with the introduction. So, Molly, I'm going to start with you. When you looked at this, you've been paying attention to this space for quite a while, and you've seen a lot of companies come and go, and you've seen the growth of the space. How does this story strike you with not only where SoundHound sits, but this whole angle of it, of letting people go and having a fundraise contingent on that and all that stuff? Share with me your thoughts.
Yeah, Bradley, I think, initially when you see a story like that, your first reaction is, what is the reason that we're leading with this negative and letting people go? The benefit, of course, is often to make the company more cost effective and then make it more readily purchasable. So make it more attractive to investors or to somebody that might want to purchase the company. I think that when we look at whether or not the software or the offering is beneficial, I mean, in this case, it's a great offering. There's so many opportunities that one might want to use this in. And so I think that whether they are leading with having layoffs or not, the offering is positioned at the right time in the market, in the space, for everything that is hot right now. So personalization, integration, natural language processing, all of that is really a hot area. I love what they're doing with the hospitality space. And so, I would say that they're in the right spot. Either way, headline that might be a little controversial or sensationalized, I don't know if that's going to matter with the interest in the space right now.
I'm going to ask you one additional thing before I go on to the rest of the panel, just because everything your agency does, it's very thoughtful, it's very empathetic. What is the responsibility of a company to an employee? Is there any? Is there to allow them to grow? Is it to pay them if they have to sever them at some point? Like, what is the responsibility a modern day company, especially a venture-backed one, has to an employee?
I think especially when you have companies that are startups, or they're asking a lot of their employees in the initial stage, when they work long hours or they're giving a lot of themselves to that effort, it's important to have the right package. There is an obligation, I believe, to make sure that that separation is done in a way that's empathetic and is thinking about the investment that employee has made. So when these things happen, whether it's with Salesforce or with others that have been in the news recently, especially when the company focuses on the family aspect of the relationship of the employees, I think it's very important, not only for just the right thing to do, to be considerate and compassionate toward that employee that's separating, but also for the reputation of the brand and how the brand is managing the treatment of its employees. So you have a couple of things, just what's the right thing to do, and deliver a package that makes that a softer landing for that employee that is separated from the company, but also look at the long-term reputation, brand, and everything around the values that the organization represents, because it all shows in how you treat the employees.
I love that. Yeah. So thank you for allowing me to ask you sort of a quick follow-up there. And Shyamala, I'm going to go to you. So you know SoundHound as well as anybody. You know, we've all followed them over the years. Your thoughts on this piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting piece. What I would say is, I mean, there are two things happening here. One is the layoff, right? Like they did 2 rounds of layoff, which is interesting. And now they got the investment, which again is not like cash investment, right? It's like like it's a stock investment in the sense like they cannot immediately use it, but it's good in the sense that yes, it's going to open up a lot of with the things they are doing in the restaurant and the drive-throughs and all, it's going to be helpful. So that's interesting part, which shows like the conversational AI has a long way to go and there's still scope and hope, given that layoffs also happened with Amazon Alexa team and Google Assistant team as well. There was a little bit of inhibitions and reservations, people had about like, what's the future for conversational AI? So this investment definitely shows that there's scope and something bigger is coming. So that's good. On the layoff piece, what I feel is, well, the moment company decided to go public, obviously things change. It's not the same thing. As a startup, you have a little bit more flexibility and, you are not, there's pressure always there, but it's not in the sense like you have to answer to stakeholders or you have to keep pushing for the profits and all. And the stock prices, when they went almost to 1, that's when the problem started happening, now, and they want to now make sure that they have enough profits, or they have to show they are making profits and all, and that's where the layoffs happened. It's very common nowadays. Just to keep the stakeholders happy, companies will do it, right? So that's what is happening. What is interesting in all of these things is the 2-month severance, which was given to the employees, which is like nothing, right? There's no stocks, no other benefits, no insurance and all. So I feel like that's where, a little bit of negativity comes into play. Like, should we trust the company when all the good things are happening and there's so much investment and effort going on when a company does something like that? So that's where, my mind goes listening to a news like this.
Yeah, and you touched on the going public, and of course the way they went public is controversial. The sort of the reverse IPO, I forget what exactly that's called, where you buy, they create the shell company, and then the shell company goes public, and the shell company uses the proceeds to in effect buy the company. So the underlying asset of the company, the underlying company that's public now never really had the same scrutiny, and there's a lot of a lot of negativity around that, and some people want to make that illegal on top of it, which is interesting. So appreciate you touching on all of that. Victor, I'm going to go to you. Obviously you're CEO of a venture-backed company. Interesting story here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think that the entire tech industry is suffering from a bit of a hangover after more or less 5 years of just pure rally on the stock market, right? We're seeing that pan out even for good businesses who do layoffs because they overhired over the last couple of years, and now investors look a lot less on the growth potential and a lot more on the actual unit economics of your business, right? I don't know SoundHound in detail, but if they went IPO with us back, they probably are in the category of companies that is maybe a bit too early to be a public company, and that was maybe fun 2 years ago, but is less fun in an environment like we're in right now, where especially the types of investors who buy public stocks, right, they're very focused on metrics and a lot less on vision and cool technology. So I'd guess that there's an element of that in that. I also think that there is we're an interesting period in time where the breakthroughs in AI the last 6 months have been absolutely amazing. it's a very fast moving space. And I think the next couple of years we'll see the winners emerge. With these type of technologies, I think what we see, right, is that there's a lot of advance in steps. It's less of a straight line. Like you get something like diffusion models, which has now become very popularized over the last 6 months, large language models, that just completely changes the game, right? And I think there's a lot of those companies that have been around for a long time that really run the risk of being locked into legacy technology that's going to be completely outcompeted by new starters or existing companies who can now build these features very easily. So something like speech recognition, for example, we saw Whisper being released by OpenAI, open source model for automatic speech recognition, which I think from at least our internal test seems to like beat 98% of the providers in the market today, right? And that's something everyone can pick up, launch on some servers, and you can start building a product around it. So I think maybe there's also a feeling among investors that they're not going to be one of those companies. I don't know. But I think there is a lot of scrutiny in these types of companies, even if the opportunity is obviously very, very large.
SPAC was the term I was looking for. Thank you. So yeah, no, I mean, that's great commentary. And that's one of the reasons we did the industry landscape map that we came out with, that's out there, that, you know, there's all these companies who want to eat your lunch, you know, every day. And we already have 100 to 200 more companies that want to go on that visual we've created. And you know, it's I don't know how anybody working in this space does anything else other than sleep with one eye open, because it's the competitiveness is sky high, and you touched on that, and I thought it was a great point. Freddie, I'm going to go to you. Heard 3 fantastic and very insightful takes on this. I want to get your opinion. You know SoundHound as well. You've been around this space as long as anybody. Your thoughts?
Well, one thing I wanted to like address, because you had asked about like the relationship between the employee and the company too. And as someone who has gotten that very early morning phone call from a CEO saying, "Hey, we can't pay you anymore." I've had the layoff call before a few times, and because startups are exciting, and it's really cool, but it goes kind of in you could look at it a couple different ways. People are like, well, they can let you go at any point, but we have to give notice if we're going to leave, right? And so it doesn't always feel so even. But at the same time, you spend most of your day and you receive probably all of your income from this one, with this one company, with this one source when you're working for a company. And so I think, I can't remember who had said it earlier, but like when it comes to like severance packages and sort of how that landing is created for you, and how the empathy is conveyed from the company is really important. You get companies like Twitter who, you just find your access is cut off and is sort of unceremoniously let go. Versus, and I can't remember who it was, I want to say Apple recently had to let some people go, but also, they had cuts at the top as far as, salary. So it's like showing that we're doing something about it internally as well, not just like letting everybody go. And also maybe giving people, and I feel like it was Microsoft recently who gave people like quite a long runway, and notice, it's like, it's going to be, within the next 6 months or a year, we're going to have to eliminate this, this, and this. So you're aware, like to give people as much room as possible. And obviously giant companies have that luxury of being able to do it. They don't always take advantage of it, but and the problem is with a company like SoundHound is that, it's a crowded space, right? And like you had said, any one of these other larger organizations can wake up one morning and be like, "Hey, we're gonna release this," and just to play around, and it kills this, all these companies off, right? And we've seen it, with Amazon, we've seen it with Apple, Google. So I think it's a tough place, but I think the investment is promising, right? And so it shows that there's a future. I think it's tricky when you come off of layoffs though, right? Because they let go, I think the first round was like maybe 10%, but then that second batch was like another 50 or something like that percent. And then everyone left to pick up the slack, and the you know, how the morale is afterwards is going to be pretty hard to make up, even with saying, oh, well, we've got this $25 million investment, because it's not cash, right? And so it's not like, oh, we're going to just give everybody who stayed around bumps and things like that, and perks and stock and things like that. So it's I don't know, it's definitely a tricky space. And I think, you know, the layoffs right now are kind of nuts. And you know, as I'm looking for wood to knock on here, sometimes nicer to be at a larger company for a change.
Well, it's you touched on a lot of things. I mean, you touched on, you know, the one cut and then a bigger cut right after that. Like that's a unique circumstance of this story. The SPAC and a bunch of money flowing into the company in a way not everybody's 100% comfortable with in this country is part of the story. You know, I have a little bit different view on the severance, I guess, because you know, if you've only worked at a company for a little bit of time, you know, I think the company's got a little bit more bandwidth with you. But I'll tell you what, in this situation, SoundHound, and I don't really want to go into a lot of specifics on this, but when in a situation like this, where there's layoffs or any sort of growth or change, you look to see how the lifers are treated. The people who have been there for a long period of time, who have rocked with the founders from the beginning. And those are your canaries in a coal mine for what's really going on. And this was not a good situation in that regard at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting. You know, I think there's a lot of hope for the company. I like Kayvon. I like the management team, but, you know, they got their work cut out for them. Any closing comments on this before we move on to the second story? Okay. So, yeah, it is what it is. Story number 2. This is from Mashable. OpenAI reportedly tests ChatGPT Pro. What we know about the paid version. So, obviously, everybody talking ChatGPT. You know, it's a lightning rod for all the right reasons. I chose this story in particular. It covers a lot of ground, but I think it's fascinating how this company is deciding what they're going to go to market with, and the pricing and some of the other aspects of it. Shyamala, I'm going to start with you and then go in the same order, to Victor, Freddie, and then to Molly. Your thoughts on, you know, feel free to give us some general thoughts on ChatGPT, but specifically as far as this story goes in ChatGPT Pro and what they're going to market with, how does it strike you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, not a surprise, because yeah, of course, you know, they have been doing a lot of good things. OpenAI has a lot more things, and ChatGPT was one of the best, I would say. And the reason why they kept it open in the beginning felt like, you know, they were trying and testing the ground and what's happening and what kind of things people will be asking. And it's not a surprise to see all the different use cases and things people have been using it. For example, PRDs or writing a poem. I use ChatGPT for you know, like writing stories so that I can tell bedtime story to my son every day, saying AI has generated this story and, you know, listen to this. So, you know, people are using for all of these things. So all of a sudden, it was interesting to see that people have so many different needs to do. I just recently heard like ChatGPT helped clear an MBA test, which is like one of the difficult tests, right? So these kind of things are showing like there's more value on the consumer side of things. People want to use it for content generation or conversational AI chatbot or PRDs or writing a book outline or things like that. So the use cases are endless, right? So that's obvious. Like the moment you think about large language models, there's a lot of computing, there's a lot of things happening, but it's limited in its capabilities, right? And that's where bringing the Pro, because they have seen people will use it if they see the value, and they showed the value with the free version. And almost every day I tried testing ChatGPT for different use cases. It was like, we are at capacity and we are trying to increase our capacity, so stand by, or things like that. There were time when the system was out. So that shows like there's a lot of demand, people will be using it. So for them to move on to adding a Pro version with a lot more enhancements, allowing customization of or fine-tuning of a certain use case, felt very natural. And of course, that will give them more backup depending on how people are using, how many people will be there. That will give them more capacity as well to think about the computing or how much they need on the inference side of things, right? So this is an interesting story, and I really liked it. And they, listed out all the differences between the Pro and also the free version, which was really interesting to think about. Like there are not significant difference, but there are some minute differences, which is really interesting to see, like fine tuning, right? Or a more customized kind of conversations, or more context specific conversations and things like that. So definitely an interesting thing. And also with Microsoft investing in ChatGPT, that's an interesting thing. Like there's a long road ahead of the large language models.
No, that was great. Yeah. So interesting to hear your thoughts on that. And Victor, I'm going to go to you. Obviously, with everything you're doing with Synthesia, you have pricing conversations. It's critical. And I will throw in, I saw a story, this is a while back, that OpenAI was losing $3 million a day for running ChatGPT. And who's to say if that's correct, but even if the actual amount is something different, does it really matter? Like there's only so long you can do anything on that scale. So as you look at this story, would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think that number is off. I think it might even be a lot higher. I think outside of stating the obvious, right? It's amazing technology. I think everyone is mind blown when they use it the first time. But for me, what's really interesting is seeing people who are not AI nerds, like I think everyone on this call is, continue using it, right? I have family members who are not technologists who tried it once and they keep using it. And I think that's the sign of something that's truly going to change the world. I think a few interesting learnings. I think one is how much like user interface matters. The core technology behind ChatGPT has been available for at least a year before they released ChatGPT, right? It was much more of a like developer interface. It wasn't like super difficult to use. And there's definitely a lot of people using it to create cool experiences. But the thing they did was really just take that technology, simplify it, put it into this like messenger style UX, right? Where even if I show, my mom who's not very technical, she'll instantly understand it, right? Because everyone has had a chat, has had a chat message with someone else. And I think that's a really, really valuable lesson for people building these products. The UX really, really matters, right? It's a very simple change from the product that had been released for a year before that. But this is the thing that just propelled them into mass adoption, which I think is super cool. The other lesson that's interesting, we talked a little bit about that before, but big companies who all of a sudden release a feature or particular technology that has a huge impact on startups and the market. There's a lot of companies who had essentially taken GPT-3 and wrapped it in a nice user interface, kind of like OpenAI did, and offered that. And some of those companies got really big, right? You have Jasper, for example. They raised on a $1.5 billion valuation very recently. You have Copy AI. There's a million companies like that. And I bet you that they're sitting at home right now and they're sweating because OpenAI basically took their product, built a 10 times better version of it, and offered it initially for free. Now it's going to be a paid plan. But I think they'll have a very difficult time building a compelling enough product so that people will stay. And I think it just kind of proves the point that in AI, you have to really think hard about how you're differentiating your product and how defensible your technology actually is, right? I don't think anyone necessarily knows the answers to that yet. There's one answer, which is you go purely on the front end. You don't develop any of the sort of really difficult technologies. You just use what's available and wrap it nicely. Or you go somewhere in the middle where you fine tune models, you maybe train them for a specific use case and be the best in the world at that. But this like general approach, I don't think it's going to pan out well for them in the next couple of years. And the third, I think, is just really for me, what I find most exciting about this is that this is the start of having something that resembles human intelligence embedded in like every single product that we're going to use. So we're launching our integration in the next month, which basically is like you just type out, make a video about phishing training, cybersecurity 101, something like that. And GPT will just like write the entire script, put together the layout. And then you as the human, instead of having to sit down and come up with everything from scratch, you're just editing, right? You already have 80% of the end result that you want. And I think there's so many other use cases this will be transformational. And I'm just really excited to see where it's going to go, right? We're still so early, but they definitely cracked open Pandora's box. And the next year is going to be wild, especially in combination with all the other cool stuff that's going on, like Synthesia, of course, but also Stable Diffusion, DALL-E. Like the world's going to be a very different place in a couple of years. And I think ChatGPT is like that kind of is going to be the catalyst.
You touched on a lot of you made a lot of great points in there and touched on a lot of different things. And I people talk about ChatGPT and they want to say, we want to give OpenAI their props, right? They deserve a lot of credit for just synthesizing a lot of nuance and elevating this thing up. But you have to you have to keep yourself from thinking about it in like it's permanent. As quickly as OpenAI made a gazillion headlines, it's going to be somebody else tomorrow. And that's a hard mental framework to stay in with everything that ChatGPT has managed to accomplish. But you're sort of touching on that in there, and I just really liked how you assessed that. We lost Freddie. I don't know where he went. So Molly, I'm going to go to you. I with everything that you do, creatively and with your agency, you live at that intersection point with technology and society. And we've seen some of these inflection points before where something has been so profound that it's changed the way that society looks at things, like the iPod, for example. There's other examples. I really want to get your thoughts on ChatGPT generally, but also share with me your thoughts as if you have specific ones about the story too.
Yeah, well, Bradley, I think that it's a fascinating technology. One of the reasons why it's so important, I think, is because of that low barrier of adoption in terms of being able to access it with little technical skill set. So that is pretty fascinating. So the interface, of course, is important, but the capacity of what can be done with OpenAI, with the ChatGPT, is almost limitless. I mean, I don't think that there are a lot of boundaries around it. I think the boundaries are based on your ability to think about the possibilities. So the connecting the dots moment where you're looking at this technology and you're thinking, could I use it for that? Could I use it as an assistant? Could I use it as a way to collaborate, to bounce ideas, to test concepts, to change the voice of content? So I might want a friendly voice for a particular piece of content, but I might have written it in a very serious and professional tone. So what happens when that content is written in a totally different style? And that's just content. The other is just thinking about comparisons or sentiment. So I know that the paid version is supposed to be better at sentiment analysis, but the current free version is pretty good at it. I did a test and tried to come up with a neutral statement and wanted it to score on a scale of 0 to 10, 1 being the 0 being the worst and the 10 being the most positive. And I knew that I was at about 70% with my statement. It came back with an analysis of a neutral statement, but when it was scored, it was a 70% in terms of being more positive, which was 100% accurate in terms of my statement that I entered. So I think that the paid version may have improvements for business productivity in terms of you don't have the blackout periods, but the speed is fast. So again, I think that the use cases are so broad that I think it's an incredibly exciting tool to use. And business productivity, creativity, market testing, focus group testing, sentiment. I just can't even list the number of things I can think I would use it for.
That's great. Yeah, and I feel the same way. It's almost like fire. It's like we could do anything you want to with this, and you just have to figure out how to sort of narrow the scope to maximally take advantage of the opportunity that's presented. And Freddie, sorry your laptop crashed. Glad you're back with us. These things happen. So we're talking ChatGPT, talking the story, have had some great comments, want to get your thoughts as well.
Sure. I've been playing with it. I get a lot of questions around here as to what the heck we're going to do with it. What can we do with it? I think with the Pro version, I think it's natural and it's an obvious, sort of thing is like, well, you can't give it away for free. Otherwise the free model, I mean, it's not ad supported. It's not sponsored in any way. Like someone's paying for it, right? And at the tune of 3 million a day or whatever, you can't sustain that for too long. I think the one size fits all is interesting, though, that they didn't break it up into tiers. There's just Pro or free. So I'm kind of curious about the limit on the Pro for $40 a month or $42 a month. Are you going to run into limits, especially on the API side, right? So you're starting to do it, the Pro, I believe, offers an API now, right? So you would be integrating this into something that could potentially be throwing quite a bit of traffic through it, and you're promising the uptime and everything that you're not getting on the free side, right? So for $42, is it are you going to start getting some sort of power users that are going to be overwhelming the system and things like that? But and there's no 42 is kind of big for some use. I think one nice thing is it'll weed out, at least you won't get too many. I've got 2 high school students, right? So in my house, and so you won't get too many kids at least using it for papers and things like that. If they could maybe limit the free even a little bit more, that would be nice. Or come up with some more tools. On the Pro, it might be something where I would pay as a parent to be able, or as a teacher, to be able to if they provided detection tools, right, in the Pro version to make it more easily detectable, the use of it and things like that. But I think it's amazing. I think as generative AI, it's great. I think when people keep calling it a chatbot, it drives me crazy. But I think it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So it would be nice. I think there's going to be a whole cottage industry of companies that provide content verification in this AI era, because it really can't, in my estimation, it ought to come from a third party rather than OpenAI itself. Like OpenAI can provide something, and I think maybe that's like a good olive branch or like place to start, but really that needs to come from a trusted third party, or better yet, several of them that you could choose from. And because with like education alone, education just changed overnight, with ChatGPT coming out. And that's wild to think about. And it gets even crazier to think about what might be next, and we were talking about, with Victor's comments, just things can change in the blink of an eye, and ChatGPT is a good illustration of that, but it's wise just to sort of think about what's next. So all these comments are great. I want to sort of open the floor to any closing comments, because story number 3 is not going to take us a long time with how we're going to cover that. Any closing comments or anything else on your mind about ChatGPT or OpenAI before we move on?
Yeah, so one thing, I was just reading the terms and conditions yesterday, and one thing which was very interesting is they said you own the copyright of the content generated. So it's interesting to see, or in my mind, I think about it like, yeah, if it is a free version and it is generating, there are only X number of possibilities of how a content will be generated, right? So how does that lead into the copywriting and legalities? Pro version, of course, when you bring your own data set and fine tune a certain thing, it becomes yours. So that's a different thing. But it will be interesting to see how the legalities comes into play with how the content is generated and is being used.
Yeah, total agreement. Any other comments, Victor?
Yeah, I would just say I think it's a fascinating discussion around like kids in school using ChatGPT. I remember when I was in school, we were not allowed to use Wikipedia because that was definitely not like a source of truth. You had to use a physical lexicon or encyclopedia to get your information, which is interesting, right? Because that's obviously not the way the world works today. I had a friend of mine who said it's interesting that we are banning ChatGPT in schools while their parents are using it at work. And I think that statement is interesting because we're kind of like, is it ChatGPT that needs to change, or is it the way we teach in schools that needs to change? I'll leave that question be open, but I think with all these things, right, it's like the world when they go out eventually and gonna get a job, they're gonna be using these tools. So I would really hope that schools embrace these technologies, and obviously plagiarism is a real issue. But then maybe the way that we, evaluate performance in schools is less about turning in a 400 word essay and more about being able to explain what that essay actually means, and all those other things that you would be expected to do in a work environment. So, but it's really interesting. I mean, it's going to change so many elements of society, and I think the thing that's wild about these technologies now is how fast they're moving, right? This is like every 6 months, the landscape significantly changes, which is quite different from previous technologies that has taken like decades to be truly kind of integrated in society. So yeah,
Well,
interesting times.
It's put the cabal of standardized testing organizations under a lot of heat. Whether it's I think somebody mentioned the ChatGPT passing the medical license exam. I think it's passed some other exams, but standardized tests have been kind of a known problem for a while. It's square peg round hole. Like they don't really like help. They exacerbate equity problems. They do all of these things that are unintended negative consequences. And ChatGPT showed up, and you just can't play by the same rules with that tool being available. So I'm fascinated by that as well as everything else. But no, great comments all the way around, and I suspect this isn't the last time we're going to be talking about ChatGPT on this show. I've got a hunch about that. Story number 3, and we'll close with this. I'm going to read this headline from TechCrunch. Alexa funds Paul Bernard talks OpenAI, what's catching his eye and remaining relevant as Amazon restructures. So I want to get just a brief reaction from everybody. And Victor, I'm going to start with you, go to Freddie, Molly, and then close with you, Shyamala. Interesting. This interview covers a lot of ground. I want to get just from each panelist, hit me with the one thing that Amazon needs to do with Alexa to make it's not irrelevant, but to keep it relevant in this vastly changing landscape. It's sort of it's a nice it feels like we came to sort of a clean end of book 1 in a story, right? Like Alexa sort of had this rise and they had this fall, and now they're sort of like lurking, waiting to make their return. What's the number one thing they need to do? Victor, would love to hear your thoughts.
It's a good question. One thing I'm excited about, and I think they should do more of, is to actually create content with AI as well. So, of course, I think most people consider Alexa to be more like a navigation system. I think we'll see with the increasing quality of text-to-speech voices that we've already seen, and we'll see even more of this year. Apple just released their audiobooks that's generated by AI as well. I think there's a huge opportunity for them to go full on into this space. and really start to produce very interesting experiences that doesn't necessarily have to be linear with generative voice. And I think it's one of those areas where there's like definitely good ideas out there about like what new experiences does voice unlock. But I think it really requires someone to take the charge on that. And that means someone who's not afraid to invest a lot of money into trying out a lot of different things and figuring out which ones that stick. Feels like we're at the point now with large language models being able to, in more or less real time, generate the script that you require for these experiences, that there is something very, very interesting to be discovered there. And I think these big companies, a bit like they've done with streaming, right, should just throw a lot of money into just creating a lot of very weird, strange experiences, really give some creatives like the freedom to just do something crazy and figure out what is there of these, which of these kind of voice experiences really stick, right? Is it children's stories? Could that be a huge market in the next couple of years where, you know, the characters in the story kind of match with the kid can like give voice input or something like that? I don't know, but it feels like these technologies, both in terms of like the actual quality and fidelity of the voice, coupled with these like intelligence layers that large language models provide, there's something there, I think, which will give us a bunch of entirely new entertainment experiences. And I think Amazon should try and rush to be the first ones to figure out which of those types of experiences people really, really love. I think that's something that the text-to-speech space in general have struggled a bit with, is that the quality has mostly been good enough for like boring corporate voiceovers and things like that. But now I think they're getting to the point where they can actually tell stories, they can make us feel something. And I really believe that's going to unlock a bunch of new awesome stuff.
Excellent. So Freddie, I want to get your thoughts as well. What should Amazon be doing in the next chapter?
I think they're still looking for that killer app, right? I think, you know, majority of us are using it for playing music and adding things to the shopping list or you know, to-do lists and things like that, which is great. I use it. I mean, I've got devices all over my house and in my car and everywhere, and we use it a lot. But for what, you know, with what we do here at Wolters Kluwer Health, everything is focused on patient engagement and health, right? And so I think one lacking, we worked with Amazon with we were on the HIPAA eligible program where we work closely with the team to develop a skill version of our IVR programs. And I'll tell you though, you know, people don't like to answer the phone, right? A lot of times they're like, oh, the phone rings, I never answer it. I don't talk on the phone anymore. But you know what? Everybody knows how to use the phone. Like, it's so easy. We've had it forever. It rings, you touch a button and you just start talking to it, right? There's too much friction when it comes to working with patients on these Echo devices. And I think they need to find a way to make it seamless, because then you can enable telehealth, you can enable, you know, automated health, you can enable the delivery of the prescriptions and the booking of appointments. And it's all pretty easily integrated from that point, because their ecosystem is all encompassing, right? And so I think from a health perspective, they need to figure out how to make it really seamless and super easy. If you've got an interface like, you know, ChatGPT needed that simple chat interface to really break through. And I still think the Echo, I know it has this easy to use voice interface, but when it comes to health, you have to do account linking and you have to install the skill, you got to do account linking and all this stuff. But like, my phone rings and I just answer it and I can talk to an ME pro, you know, a Wolters Kluwer program, and it's super easy. And it needs to be that easy. So that's my opinion. What they need to do next is really simplify that and try and take over health.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's a great thought. Molly, same question to you. What should be next on Amazon Alexa 2.0's radar?
Well, I agree with Freddie, Bradley. I think that healthcare is an important area. I think because Alexa is already in the home and we have Siri and we have these tools that are already part of our daily lives, I think that healthcare is a natural fit. And I think also that the ability to communicate, ask questions, clarifying questions, to really dig down and understand what the issues are for the patient that is at home. Also, telemedicine and remote monitoring is an important aspect of that. So I think that healthcare in the home and making that more useful is important. So that would be one thing. I think the other thing that would be interesting to see Amazon get into is the educational aspect and using this technology for helping educate in terms of critical thinking. So if we could raise emotional intelligence along with critical thinking in our younger people as they navigate the complexities of this world that we are developing in real time, I think that that would be an area for good that Amazon could be involved in and would increase its brand equity, because of those two areas are sort of the softer side of things in terms of education and healthcare, and critical to the success of us as human beings in society.
I like that. Yeah, no, that's great. Shyamala, I'm going to give you the last word. What should Amazon be doing with Alexa in the next chapter to come?
Yeah. Having been part of Amazon and having seen the entire spectrum, the growth and fall and everything, I have a very different opinion than how others are thinking here, in the sense that they have the technology. They have to think about decoupling everything. Right now, it's the ecosystem they have, or the way they are thinking about Alexa devices, right? It's like, oh, okay, I want to create Alexa in the car, so let's create an SDK. Or they think about, okay, for hotels, so let's deploy Alexa devices everywhere. But the underlying things or the use cases are limited, like Freddie mentioned, like I only use for music or reminders, right? Or maybe setting timers and things like that. So the use cases are not beyond that. It's not going to change. It's the mental model, because where it is deployed and how it is deployed, right? If we have to really think about deploying or leveraging Alexa in healthcare setup or things like that, instead of coupling it with the device, or instead of coupling it like this is how it has to be, like I'll give you an Alexa device which has a skill, or maybe you can create your own skill kind of thing. Skills, we have to kill that, it may frustrate many people when I say that, but it's not helping. It's not discoverable. There's many problems. And that is the whole reason. Like, although we have 1,000+ skills, many of them people don't even use. And Amazon is trying very hard to promote and push and show, like, okay, you have these skills, can you try it? And things like that through their displays and all, right? None of these things will work. They have the core technologies. You have the ASR, they have the text-to-speech, they have the natural language processing. Instead of, linking it all together, they should decouple it and allow customers to leverage these technologies and then create their own experiences, whatever they want to create, whether it is creating a customer care experience end-to-end, leveraging the entire ecosystem, or whether it is to create a custom voice, right? Right now, creating a custom voice is a painful process. Like, you have to fill a form. There's no autonomy at all. Amazon will do everything for you. Like, allowing a self-service kind of experience, they already have the capabilities, but allowing those kind of things will definitely take them to the phase 2 of things. Otherwise, we will end up into the same situation. Like, people will have an interest, there's a hike, and then we'll see the downfall, and we're like, okay, yeah, because that's always there with technology, and it will happen with ChatGPT as well at some point.
No, I like that. That's a great way to end. Basically advocating for taking one step backward to take 2 steps forward. And yeah, no, I think that's great. Look, the comments and the commentary from y'all has been awesome. Thank you for taking the time, sharing your time, sharing your expertise with not just me, but the audience as well. It's greatly appreciated. For This Week in Voice.
Thank you, Bradley.
Yeah, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Y'all were great. So for season 8, episode 2 of This Week in Voice, thank you for listening on your podcast provider of choice, watching, if you're watching on YouTube. Until next time.